Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide. And with me tonight is Rizèl Scarlett. Rizèl's video is not showing up, though, so give me a moment to see if I can figure out what's going on with Rizèl's video here. Video.
Is it on my side?
Not sure. You are not coming through, though.
My camera's the same. Sorry. Oh,
Checking if the audio's coming through.
it's
Yeah, the audio's coming through. We just don't see your
definitely-
video.
Sorry.
Nope, not a problem. I'm going to try reloading the...
The browser?
Yeah, no, just over on my side here. I can try to refresh here and see if that comes through.
I think it's me. Could I refresh my browser and then see if I can back? Because when I look at the video options, it says no, disabled.
I see that your video is, or I just see that your camera's off. So yeah, if you want to try and reload there, that'll be fine.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Thanks for hanging out, folks. We'll get this sorted out here in just a sec. We'll have Rizèl reconnect, and then I'll need a moment to bring this back into software here.
There I am.
There
Sorry
you
about
are. Yeah, no worries. All right, cool. Well, hello. So tonight we've got Rizèl Scarlett on the stream with us. So appreciate your time tonight, Scarlett, or Rizèl, sorry. We had this whole discussion on how to pronounce your name, and then I used the wrong name. Cool. Let's start with some introductions. So why don't you tell us who you are, where do you work, what do you do at work, and then let's dive into your journey a little bit. Like, how did you get into tech and well?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Rizèl Scarlett, and it's okay to mess with my name. It's a new last name, so I'm not even used to it. I'm currently working as a junior developer advocate at GitHub. I've been here for about 6 months and 3 days, and I only know that because I was waiting for the 6-month mark.
Nice.
And what else? In the past, I worked as a software engineer for about 3 years at various different startups. So I worked at a 7-person startup before. I worked at a startup that was 20 people at first, and then it grew to about 60 or so. I think it's still growing now that I've been gone. And I also did different help desk internships. I went to a coding boot camp. There's so much about me, so I should probably talk about the trajectory.
Sure.
But I basically started off studying psychology in college, and I realized that financially that wouldn't be a good option for me. When you're 18, you just pick a degree, and I was like, oh, that's cool, I want to study how people think. But eventually I was like, oh man, I don't think I have enough money to be able to continue college. And then also people who study psychology normally have to get a graduate degree and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So I ended up having to drop out of college, and I had to go back to the drawing board. I did a little bit of Googling, and that was 2013, 2014-ish, when people were trying to get people into tech a little bit, and I seen it pop up. I'm like, what is this? Maybe I should try getting into it. Looks like there's money there, because that's at the moment what I was concerned about. I'm like, I need
Gotcha.
money. So I wasn't really sure how to get into it. I tried doing free code camp, but I'm not really great at self-studying. And I went to community college for computer information systems. And that's how I learned help desk things, and I ended up doing help desk internships because they were heavily emphasizing doing internships. And I was like, what are those? Wait a minute, you can get paid. Okay, that's cool.
Getting paid's kind of the goal of all of this, right?
Yeah. I thought they were free. I had no clue. I was like, oh man, okay, cool, I can get paid for those. And then when I was doing the help desk internships, I did enjoy them, but I felt like if I stayed long there, I would get bored. I would be at the company for 6 months as an intern, 9 months or whatever, and I'd be like, okay, I kind of get how this goes. It's kind of the same flow. So I wanted to challenge myself a little bit more, and I was interested in software engineering. I was just scared of the math aspect, because I had never had a really strong math background in elementary school, high school, whatever. Math was kind of scary to me. So
How much math do
um
you actually do on the job though?
not none.
There you go.
None at all. But my misconception at the time was that I would be doing math, and I had looked at like the course requirements at my community college, and they wanted me to do discrete math, linear algebra, and I was like, discrete? Like, how is it? Is it a secret? So I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But I ended up going to a coding boot camp that was free called Resilient Coders. Did that, became a software engineer, worked as a software engineer for like 3 years and 10 months or so. And I liked coding. I thought it was really fun. But I felt like I had other talents, or I don't know what the word is, but skills. Yeah, I had other
Skills?
skills that were being underutilized. Like I really liked writing. I really liked talking to people a lot more and helping them. And I was like, dang, I wish I could do that. And I went on Twitter, I see all these people doing that, and I figured out they're getting paid to do that.
Mm.
I looked into developer advocacy. I had a misconception again that developer advocates were only people who had like years and years and years of experience, because I would always like ask people and they're like, you have to wait until you're a senior software engineer. I'm like, oh. But then a junior developer advocate role came up and I was like, ooh, I'm apply for that, and I got GitHub, and now I'm here.
Nice. So you work
Yeah.
at GitHub. And what is your day-to-day entail? So last Thursday we had a whole panel on here that talked about like what is developer relations and what is not developer relations. Like what do you do? Like what does your typical day look like at GitHub doing DevRel kind of work?
Yeah, sure. I would say probably because I'm in a more junior role, it's very more focused on like content creation and
Mhm.
coding. I know a lot of like more senior people are working with like product feedback, um, or like they're talking to customers about product feedback and like product friction and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But mostly, here's how my day looks. I'll wake up, look at my calendar, and be like, okay, cool. Plan out my day of what I'm gonna do, and usually I'll like code up something like a project that I thought was cool. Then I'll probably write a blog post about it. I often do Twitter spaces like once or twice a week to connect with other open source maintainers,
Cool.
because GitHub is the home of open source, so we want to know who our open source maintainers are and be able to like give them a good experience and connect more contributors to them. um and that's kind of my day sometimes. Like maybe I'll meet with my manager and figure out like my goals. Am I on track? But I think it's heavily on content creation and the things that I enjoy doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and little plug for Postman where I work. We've been working with folks at GitHub to make a whole like API collection
Ooh.
in Postman to go use the GitHub API, and it works really well. Like you go get your API keys, you plug all the stuff into Postman, and then you can basically tinker with all of GitHub's APIs. So it's pretty fun
What?
stuff.
I would like to check. Is it like
Yeah, it's
already out?
free.
I will.
No, it's totally
Oh,
free. Yeah, just go to postman.com, make an account. You can like all over the like the collections within their workspace. Just search for GitHub at the top, find the GitHub one, and then yeah, you can totally play with their API right in the browser. You go get your API key and you plug that in and do the authentication, and Postman takes care of everything else. Pretty fun.
that's so awesome. A lot of my projects, like I'm making a VS Code extension right now that like
Oh, nice.
publishes your your GitHub page, like publishes your repo to GitHub page, and like I've been like typing in stuff in Postman and checking it out. But it would be cool that like I had no clue there was a collection. So
Yeah,
would love to leverage that.
very cool. Zooey asked in chat, do you have to be a good writer to be a developer advocate? How would you rate your own writing skills when it comes to like writing blog posts and so on?
Okay, I think I don't know, maybe I'm cocky, but I think I'm a good writer. But that I don't think you have to be a good writer to be a developer advocate. Everybody has different strengths. Like some people are really good at like video creation, video editing, and Twitch streaming and stuff like that. I'm not good at that. Like I've literally probably made like I was talking to you about YouTube shorts. I made one YouTube short for the whole 6 months that I was here, and other people have been banging them out. I struggle at just like talking within like that 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you don't need to be a good writer, in my opinion.
one of my coworkers absolutely killing it on TikTok right now. She makes like these great little 60-second videos of like, hey, if you want to do this thing in Postman, just blah 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 blah, and like she's on a ski lift, like recording herself, like while she
What?
got the goggles on the whole bit, and I'm like you're supposed to be on vacation. Why are you recording things for work? But like that's just like she'll make videos while she's out walking her dog and stuff like that, and it's like those are amazing. I wish I could do that.
That's
But that's the nice thing about leveraging a team is like one person might be good at video, one person might be good at blogging, one person might be good at coding. If you're the only DevRel on the team, then you got to kind of juggle a lot of that.
awesome.
But yeah, DevRel's definitely a pretty fun gig for sure. Um,
Yeah.
so you did coding for a little while and then kind of pivoted into DevRel.
Yeah.
What was it like for you getting that first job? I like to kind of dig in a little bit to like what was your interview process like? How did you get noticed by that company? Like I know it was an internship, and PS, never ever ever take a free internship. You
Yeah.
should always get paid for your time. That's my very strict stance on that subject. But how did you like? How did you find the company? How did you apply? What was that interview process like? How did you kind of win them over? Because interviews are hard, and getting that first job in tech is really hard.
Yeah.
Like Zooey and Chat took a couple of months to get a job. It took me almost 2 months to find a job, like kind of semi-active interviewing, then time in between, then like full-time interview kind of thing. But like a lot of people that drop by the stream, they're trying to get that first job in tech, and it's really hard to get that first job in tech. So tell us a little bit about your experience as far as like how did you find the company? Like what kind of research did you do? How did you apply? How did you stand out to get those
Yeah.
interviews and so on?
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I've had multiple internships, so I don't if you don't mind, I want to talk about some of like more than
Sure.
one just cuz
Yeah,
I
that'd be
think I have
great.
experiences. Yeah. So for my help desk internship, um that was like back in the day, didn't know what I was doing, and I just looked on Indeed and like applied to all the IT internships that I found. And then they like reached out to me and interviewed me, and I was pretty honest with them that I didn't know that much because I was like maybe in my first year of community college, and I was like, I don't know that much, but I do want to learn. And I think um what was appealing to them is that I was somebody that like really wanted to learn, and they could tell that I would like soak in the information and like run with it. Cuz I think maybe the people they had in the past were a little nervous, I'm not sure. But yeah, that was like how I got that first internship, and I think I did really well and had really good mentorship there, but I didn't have like how when you go into interview, you're supposed to interview the interviewer as well. I didn't like have that background or knowledge as yet. Um,
Okay.
but then for another internship that I got, which was a IT internship at HubSpot. I want to talk about that too.
Sure.
I strongly believe, especially if you're like an underrepresented minority, definitely take advantage of like the programs that are out there for people. So I was in this program called Hack Diversity, which serves like Black and Brown youth in the Boston area, and they connected us with different talent partners or companies and like they let us interview with them and chat with them, and it was really good to be able to like get a chance to interview with those companies that I may not have had access to in the past.
Hmm.
So I strongly encourage people to do those because I just feel like it's like a good connection. I think oftentimes like minorities like we apply to stuff but like may not like stand a chance sometimes because maybe people have like other connections and stuff like that. So I do like highly encourage people, like if you see a program out there that you're a good fit for, definitely try joining it, take advantage of the opportunities that they have. But yeah, I went through Hack Diversity. They gave me like career and resume workshop training and stuff like that, and then I applied to HubSpot. um and it was a simple interview since it was an internship again. um and I kind of told them I already have past experience from my other job, and I showed them like how I like the cool things I had done even though I was an intern. Like I had migrated like all the computers over from Windows 7 to Windows 10, and all that. So I showed like the progress that I've made, and I even on my resume I made sure to have like quantifiable I don't know, is that the right word? But
Yep.
basically, I
You want
put numbers.
quantified. Yeah, you want to put numbers on your resume.
Yeah, I put numbers on
Yeah.
my resume. I didn't want to just say like migrated over computers from Windows 7 to Windows 10. I was like migrated 150
Yeah.
computers just so they can like really understand that impact. And then for software engineering, after I did my coding boot camp, I went into another internship.
Okay.
And um so that was much harder because I think IT is kind of like not as much questions or not as many coding challenges and tests. Um, so for after I graduated my coding boot camp, let me see how it went. I'll have to jog my memory back a little bit. I think I interviewed at 3 places, and the first one went terrible. I cried,
Oh
but
no.
that was because I didn't really know what to expect. It was actually not even a hard question for me. Like it was something that I knew how to answer, but I was just like, "Oh my goodness, I have to like type in front of somebody." And I like froze up, and then when they told me, "Okay, bye. Thank you for interviewing." I just cried.
Oh
Um,
no.
but yeah, after that, I think it was good for me to still get that experience. Because sometimes people say, "Oh, like I'm not ready to interview," but it's good to see what it's gonna be like. So I counted that one as my practice. I know it was a loss, but I'm like, it was a practice for me to like gain
Yeah.
that confidence and know what to expect. And then for future interviews, here's how it went. First, I had like a phone call that was like a behavioral interview, like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I think they're just checking to see like would this person be a good fit for our company? Does their resume really check out for who they are? With this person, is there any like potential red flags? Like, just little stuff. It's nothing too serious. So then after that, I moved into um, what did they have? It was pretty short again because it was an internship. I think I went to the office and I had a whiteboarding interview. And the question was a little hard for me, but um, what I think really helped me stand out is I asked a lot of questions along the way. Like they'd be like, code this out. And instead of like me making assumptions, I stopped and I was like, oh, um, is this going to be considered? Should I like take this into consideration and stuff like that and coded it out? And then afterwards, when he said, how could we improve this? I was like, oh, maybe I can take away the for loop and try this out. And just making it a conversation rather than like, oh my goodness, I'm getting tested and this is very scary.
Yeah.
Um, that was good. And then one more interview experience. Just one.
Sure. No, it's
Yeah,
fine.
cool. And then so after that I was kind of done with internships because I'm like, okay, cool. I did a bunch of internships. I just like doing them because I wanted at the time because I wanted to be able to try out different companies and see like are these good fits for me without making a lot of commitment. And then I also like internships because made me it allowed me to have less responsibility and be able to like explore the code base and stuff like that. I think when you once you sign up for a role, like you're you're on projects that are responsible, like you're responsible for projects that are like going out into the code base or whatever. But like when you have intern projects, some of them are throwaways, and I just really wanted to get experience on like what that was like. But for my first entry level role after my internship, um I worked at a company as an intern, got converted into full time, but I ended up not really liking the place anymore, so I moved to another role, and that interview was actually pretty interesting. Again, I had that regular phone call, um, and then what they had me do was come in and do like a system design problem, where they told me how the product worked, and they were like, if you were to add like a payment system to this product, how would you do it? And I
Hmm.
kind of like wrote out on the board, like I would have like this SQL database, here's how it would be organized. And then they were like, what would the front end look like? And
Wow.
I was like, I would probably use React and do this, this, and this. So it was an interesting and fun exercise.
Yeah.
And then after that, I talked to each of the employees there and they hired me. That's it. That's all the interview experiences. I just think it's good to see or hear about an array of them.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm a huge fan for those that have tuned in on the stream before. I'm a big fan of kind of the saying, and I wish I could remember where I first heard this, that interviews should be conversation, not interrogation. Like
Yeah.
it needs to feel like you're just having like sitting down and having a water or having a coffee with someone else, and not like, here's a question, give me an answer. Here's another question, give me an answer. Here's another question, give me an answer. Like those, like it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
And so having a more comfortable kind of feel around, like, what would you do in this kind of scenario, and like, talking through that system design a little bit, like maybe throw you a curveball just to see your critical thinking kind of on the spot. I think is good. It's really what interviewing should be.
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies are so wrapped up and so attached to this idea of like, oh, it has to be a code challenge and it has to be like a Leetcode style thing, that they lose sight of what the interview's about. And it's
Yeah.
it's not just, do you have the technical skill, but are you going to fit in on the team? Like, can you collaborate well? Can you communicate well with others? Those
Yeah.
are the things that really matter when it comes to an interview. And it shouldn't be just sit down and let me grill you with questions for an hour or multiple hours with multiple people. Like, that's no fun for anybody.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate hearing all the different perspectives. And someone was actually, so 3D Print Fan asked in chat, like, what's a simple interview? And a couple of other
Oh,
folks are saying, like, I think it was that the IT interview was like simpler compared to like the
yeah.
coding style, right?
Yes, sorry about that. I shouldn't use
No, no
words like
worries.
simple and stuff like that. It was simple for me, I guess, because they weren't like in an IT interview, they were more checking to see like my customer service skills, I guess. Like how would I react
Gotcha.
if a customer did something? And then they just wanted to know like, oh, if a computer wasn't working, like what how would I try to
Right.
troubleshoot it? It's less algorithm based. So that was
Yeah.
easier for me.
I mean, it's still kind of flowchart based of like, is the power on? Does the mouse
That's
work? Does the
true.
keyboard work? Like, there's still kind of like a step-by-step approach that you'd still have to take. But yeah, it is going to be very different from like, hey, you've got this array of all this like really weird data. How do you normalize it to turn it into blah blah blah? Put it
Yeah.
in a binary tree and then, search for something. It's much harder to to work through
I
those kinds of
didn't
stuff.
think of that before. Wow. Like it is kind of like that flow chart. Like what would you do next? Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for the background. So, what I thought we'd do with Rizèl tonight is just kind of go through some of the backlog of questions that we've had. And absolutely, you can keep dropping questions in chat. We'll address those as we go. So, if you've got questions for Rizèl about her background and kind of the coding bootcamp, I dropped a link to Resilient Coders in the
Yeah.
chat as well. So go check them out if you're looking for a bootcamp. Um, Stewie says in chat, troubleshooting in IT definitely feels like the Hardy Boys books. Yeah, I actually grew up on those like way back in the day, and I've been debating like going back and recollecting the Hardy Boys. But I think they were making a Nancy Drew movie at one point too. That was like
Oh
the
yeah,
the
I
the
think they
female
were.
counterpart of the Hardy Boys.
I
Uh,
never read the Hardy Boys books, but I heard my dad talk about
it's been around a minute,
yeah.
been around a while. Yeah, so let's dive in on a couple of these backlog questions. And partly why I wanted to have Rizal on here is just to hear someone else's perspective on some of these things. So we tagged a couple of questions in Discord. I dropped the chat in Discord. You can always do a bang Discord in chat if you want to follow us on Discord. You're welcome to join the community there. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, I will have all these links in the video description as well. And if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. I'm bad at marketing, so I need all of you folks to help me market. Um, cool. Let's dive in on some of these questions. So some of these were questions that I was given by people that I was mentoring or doing interviews with, and they would have questions at the end. And so I've been kind of collecting these, and I'm like gradually putting them into Discord and so on. So the first one, uh, give a bit of context here. So they're a new developer. They've been out of work for a little while. They've been applying for jobs, and they got a couple of interviews lined up. Um, and the question here was, I'm an entry level dev. I was told by my recruiter that I'm going to be given a quote hard problem. Does that mean it's going to be a Leetcode like hard problem, or something else? And how should I expect to succeed in this interview? So, Rizal, if you were going for a coding interview now, and you were told by the recruiter, like, hey, as you prepare, like that next interview, they're going to be giving you a hard problem. How would you interpret that? Like, what would be the first thing going through your mind?
Yeah, for me, I don't like to assume things, so it might be a little bit annoying to the recruiter, but I'd probably message them and try to ask for a little bit more clarification. Like that's
Absolutely.
usually what I would do because a recruiter's not like a developer, so sometimes they may think like, oh, okay, what I'm saying to them is clear, and a developer knows exactly what to do with that information. But I'd be like, hey, so I don't know what a hard problem means. Here's my interpretation. Does that sound right? And I'm just asking so that I can be best prepared for the interview. I don't know
Yeah.
what your thoughts are on
No,
it, Ian.
I think that's exactly the right thing to do. Like you have to ask for clarification. Keep in mind too that a lot of recruiters, even at tech companies, they don't have a technical background. They don't have a coding background. Maybe they looked at the question and go, "This is hard." I'm just
Yeah.
going to tell the person, "Hey, like the question they're going to ask is hard." When you might get in and be like, "How do you traverse over an array?" It's like, for each,
That
like
wasn't
you
hard.
succeed. Yeah. So I mean, but is it like, were they told by the engineering team and the hiring manager that it is going to be a hard problem, or is it just a subjective, like I looked at it and I think it's hard, therefore I'm telling you it's hard?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to ask for clarification on that, and the more information you can get, the better. So absolutely ask the recruiter. Yeah, and that's really their job. I wouldn't worry about like coming across needy or anything like that. Like that's their job, is to help you be prepared for that interview. So whatever they need to do to get you prepared, that is their goal. So absolutely ask them the question.
Because they want to get you hired.
For sure. Yeah, they're tracked on the metrics of like how many people did you sort of source or like get into the pipeline, how many of those actually got through the interviews, and they look at the what they call the funnel of like all the applicants in the top, and it gradually narrows down into like the couple of people that they make offers to. Yeah. RC Maniac mentions in chat, I'd email the recruiter and say, "What's a hard problem?" Yeah, I mean, you have to ask them for that clarification, and
Yeah.
I would do that with a recruiter no matter what's going on. Like, always ask for clarification if there's any little detail that they're giving you that you're like, I don't quite like 100% understand that. You can also email them back or call them back and say like, "Hey, I don't want to make a bad assumption here, but like, did you mean this, or can you like help explain this or that?" And I think a lot of recruiters are really willing to spend that time and say like, "Yeah, let's get you set up for success." Like they want the hiring to be over as much as you
Yes.
want that interview to be over. Like they don't want to spend like months and months going through tons of candidates. They want to find that person for the team that's like the perfect fit. So yeah, anything they can do to kind of get you in the door, like within reason, I think they're going to be willing to do. All right, awesome. The follow-up from that one. So same mentee, they had gone to a different interview. They said, "I was given a difficult problem and I didn't finish it during the interview. How should I communicate that with my interviewer? And what would you recommend doing?" And I think the framing around this question was like, do I email them afterwards? Like, do I take that thing home and try to finish it and then like stay in contact with them and let them know I finished? Like, I think this would be like more framed as like an entry level dev. So if you had to give this advice to like a junior dev coming into the industry, where they say, "Hey, Rizèl, like I went for an interview, I didn't finish the problem. Like, what should I do, or what should I have done?" What would your recommendation be in a scenario like that?
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One, that like you don't necessarily need to finish the problem, because I think a lot of times what they're looking for is like your train of thought or like your communication skills, how you go about solving the problem. Because you may just not have time to, and they may have just been like, oh, okay, cool, this person thought about this pretty well. But I will say in the past I have gone home and like finished the problem really quick because I'm like, oh, I just thought about like how I could have done it, and I'll like message the recruiter and be like, hey, after like thinking about it a little bit more, I did end up solving the problem, and here's how. But I don't think it's like something you have to or like really deliberate over and be like, oh my goodness, I didn't finish it. I think a lot of times they'll just like be like, cool, I liked how this person communicated with me and problem solved and collaborated with me. But
Yeah.
I don't know, what's your thoughts, Ian?
I think, especially for entry level devs, I think, they definitely want to see you demonstrate that you can code, but I think it also really comes down to like your overall process. Like, do you have a process to follow?
Yeah.
And for those that have followed me on the stream, I've got like a pretty not rigid, but I've got a pretty well defined kind of process that I like to follow, where you like restate the problem, ask questions, write out some notes or some pseudocode, preferably to like design what you're going to build, and then go build the code.
Yeah.
And all through that, you're kind of communicating as much as possible with the interviewer. And I think that they're really evaluating like, hey, if you get a problem, what are you going to do with that problem?
Yeah.
And they really want to hear like how are you going to break that down? Do you have like good problem solving skills? Do you have a good mechanism that you can employ to like actually take that thing and like break it into smaller chunks? And then how do you solve each of those chunks? And do you remember all the details? Do you have to keep asking me the same questions over and over?
Yeah.
But and then they're really evaluating like how are you communicating? Like when you get stuck, how are you going to let me know?
Yeah.
Because chances are pretty good you're going to get stuck on these things. And they want to know how they can help you. They want to know at what point are you going to ask for help, or are you just going to make assumptions and like go down a bad path? And I've seen
Yeah.
that happen in real interviews as well, where someone wasn't sure what to do. And so they start making assumptions and then they go like way down a bad path. And as an interviewer, I need to intervene and be like, wait, before you go down that direction, go back and reread like line 3 or whatever of the prompt, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, cool, thanks for like not letting me go down that way. And that's kind of our job as the interviewers, will like almost like the bumper lanes in the bowling alley of like, you've got some
Very.
freedom in between there, but like we're gonna like keep you going in a particular direction. But like in between there you can like zigzag and like bounce around as much as you need to, but like it's our job to like keep you on track. And
Yes.
so I think, definitely asking for help and that communication is important. If you wanted, like, I mean, if you're in an interview and you've written out notes about like what the question was and you want to try to solve it on your own, I think it's great as well. Like when you give give them some feedback, or you write a little thank you note or whatever, and like email it to them later and say, hey, by the way, I know I didn't finish that problem, but it was kind of gnawing at me for a little while, and so I actually took some time, over the evening, and actually figured out this approach. Or hey, that approach that I took wasn't great. This is what I would change. Here's a little chunk of code that I've written, kind of in the meantime.
Yeah.
I I mean, by that point they've already made a decision, and
Probably.
you sending them some kind of note saying like, by the way, I solved it. They're like, we've already like made a determination about whether we're going to move on or not.
Yeah.
So it's probably not going to sway their decision. It might, but probably not. But I think staying in contact with them, I think, is good either way. So I
Yeah.
would still stay in contact with them, and if you happen to find like a new way of doing it, let them know. But you also don't want to like just go look up the answer and then send them that. And by the way, I found the answer. It's like, well, they want to see how you
Done.
can come up with the answer. Like, um, so yeah, I would. I think it's okay to like contact them after the fact and
Yeah.
go through that. Sure.
I 100% agree with you, and I want to add that, like, again, like finishing it is not the goal, because people could finish a problem and not like say how they're like, those people that just like finish the problem and they're like completely silent, and you're like, how did you get
Right.
from here to there?
Hmm.
Like, I also assume those people are not going to pass the interview,
Yeah.
so that's not the goal.
Yeah. RC Maniac says in chat, assumptions kill interviews. I've been rejected for them before. I've been told
Too.
during an interview like, hey Ian, you're overcomplicating it. Like just, take a much simpler approach. And so now I give that out as coaching advice, is like, start as simple as you possibly can. Add
Yeah.
complexity when you know you have to, but don't add complexity any sooner than that.
Before then. Yeah.
Because that like overthinking the problem and overcomplicating it is also going to get you problems.
Yeah. That's a big issue I have.
Yeah, me too. And I still do it like all the time. And so I'm constantly like checking myself. And I'm like, am I like overthinking this? And sometimes I'll ask the interviewer like, am I overthinking this? Like, am I like overcomplicating this? And sometimes the answer is yes. And again, the interviewer wants to keep you on track, and they don't want you to go down a path. And they were probably already thinking like, oh geez, how do I interrupt this guy from talking so that I can tell him? um, and so I'd say like, take a breath, ask the interviewer like, am I overthinking this? And they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Thanks for your thought on that. Someone else sent a message later on, and again, if you ask me questions over like Twitter DM, LinkedIn DM, any other kind of private channel like that, I'll never share your name on here, but this is another question that I was asked. It said, I have 3 days left before a big interview. How should I spend my time? And
Ooh.
this kind of goes into like the whole preparation thing, and some context for this. They knew that this interview was coming up, and
Okay.
so like they've had like weeks and weeks and weeks, but now they're like down to the last couple of days. And I think this interview actually happened on Tuesday this week. And they
Oh,
were
okay.
asking me on Saturday, like, hey, I got a couple of days left. How should I spend that couple of days? I wanted to get your thoughts on like how would you kind of coach somebody or mentor somebody on like how to get ready to actually go attend that interview and present in that interview.
Yeah. I mean, right now my husband's interviewing,
Okay.
and he's a software engineer too. I bet we might have differing opinions, but sometimes doing a mock interview with a friend or something like that after you've gone through different leak code problems, it's nice to get used to like talking to somebody, another software engineer or something like that, and like hearing their feedback about how you solve the problem with them. I think that's like a good way to spend the last 3 days, like just doing like a couple mock interviews with them. That usually helps me.
Yeah. Mock interviews are good. You have to make sure that the person you're mock interviewing with can give you good feedback though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I wouldn't do a mock interview with like my 11-year-old. In fact, I'm going to get very
Oh,
good coding. Although he's getting pretty good at JavaScript lately, so he might.
oh,
But um, yeah, my youngest is into JavaScript, and my oldest is getting into Python. So
oh.
but yeah, I would say like just make sure that whoever you're interviewing with, whether it's behavioral questions or technical questions or code challenges, make sure the person that you're mock interviewing with can actually give you good feedback. Um,
100%.
Otherwise, you might as well just talk to a mirror at that point, because you're going to get about I think the same kind of quality of answer from them of like, yeah, it sounded okay to me.
Yeah.
Like unless they've been in business and they've been a hiring manager and they've been on that side of it, they're probably not going to give you the same level of feedback that you might get from somebody who's in the industry and so
Yeah.
on.
No, that
Yeah,
clarification is good. Yeah.
yeah.
I usually try to like practice with like a mentor or like someone who graduated from the coding boot camp with me back in the day or something like that. But that clarification is good.
Yeah, yeah. Python
And
Nate
someone
asked it.
cramp. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say Python Nate asked in chat like, what do you think of Pramp? So Pramp, Pramp, I think is an anonymous thing, right? Like where you get paired up anonymously with somebody and you both play the interviewer. Like over the course of the session, you play
Yeah.
both the interviewer and the candidate. I've never actually used Pramp myself. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I used it. It was good for me at the time. I was an
Okay.
entry level dev then, and it was good for me because um I think I'm fine with like solving problems on my own. Like I'll be like, okay, cool, I coded this, I got it. But I do always need someone to like talk it back or talk it through with, and get used to that process. So Pramp kind of helped me with that.
Yeah.
And they have like different tracks. They have like if you're like doing like a front end development type of thing, or if you're like doing like data structures and algorithms.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Heartbender also mentioned in chat, I've actually been wondering this for a while. I'm noticing that I'm not finishing the coding part, but I restate the question, I write notes, I design up my algorithm, and then code at the end. Yeah, I think you do need to be cognizant of how much time you're spending doing kind of that upfront design. You don't want to like fill up all of your interview time with just the design, because they do want to see you code and they hope that you're going to finish the problem.
Yeah.
If you don't finish the problem, it's not the end of the world, but they would like to see you finish if possible. And a lot of that just comes with practice of like, am I detecting the pattern of the problem and say like, oh, this is like a sliding window problem. This is how I solve a sliding window problem. So let me apply those ideas here and see if you can kind of get through the problem from there. You want to try to get all of that down to like 10 minutes, maybe, if you're kind of entry level. And the more senior you are, seasoned, as I like to call myself, then maybe you want to get that closer to 5 minutes, because they're going to
Yeah.
hope that, they can give you like multiple challenges or kind of see like a breadth of knowledge from you and how you would handle sort of different scenarios.
Completely agree. I think it's good to do that upfront work, but like don't take too long.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that you used Pramp a little bit. How many, like, did you ballpark how many times you used Pramp, and like what was the quality of feedback that you got from people on there?
I think I only used it 2 times. And I thought the feedback was good, but like maybe I was just lucky and like got paired up with somebody that was honest. But yeah, I thought it was like some honest feedback where they were like, "Oh, next time we should do this," or it was a long time. I think it was 3 years ago when I tried it out.
Okay.
But like they were like, next time try this out, or they would try to steer me the right way. So I think I got paired up with somebody who knew what they were talking about. I do think there's like a potential situation where you might not. And I was actually nervous to be the person on the other side because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough experience interviewing people. So I'm not even sure of the quality feedback that I gave.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop a link in chat here as well. There's a new platform that I've been kind of giving some product ideas to called
Ooh.
HackerPen, and it's a whole mock interview site where you can go and you can actually sign up to do mock interviews for other people, as well as to sign up for mock interviews with other people. So you can be just an interviewer or just sort of the mock candidate at that point. And I've been chatting with Marshall, who kind of designs the software with a partner.
Oh.
And they want to open source the whole thing. So it's based on a whole bunch of open source tooling. They've been building in a bunch of stuff themselves. It's actually pretty nice tool.
Ooh.
I'm debating kind of setting something up as far as like a regular kind of like mock interview thing for myself with Tech Interview Guide, like have people sign up for mock interviews and so on. Right now I'm just doing everything through interviewing.io for platform. But HackerPen's got some really nice features.
Okay, I will check this out. Looks good. And I'll tell people about it as well.
Yeah, cool. All right, we got a couple of questions left in the backlog here. Definitely keep dropping questions and comments in chat. So we're chatting with Rizèl from GitHub right now, and we're just yakking a little bit about tech experience and tech interview challenges and what it's like to do interviews in the tech industry and that. This next question that we got said the company where I'm interviewing gave me their company values to read. So like I think the context on this is like the recruiter said like, hey, in order to prepare for our interviews, like here's a bunch of stuff to read, and it included their company values. So their question was, should I work their wording into my responses to behavioral questions? So
Interesting.
yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like, would you use their words against them?
I think I would say it will have to be up to your personality. I would say be yourself as much as possible and show how you've used those values, but you don't have to, like to me, you don't have to be like, and kindness is how I like, like don't you don't have to be like robotic or like awkward with it. Like you can give an example of a time you were kind or you exemplified leadership skills and values, but I don't think you need to like regurgitate what they have because I think maybe it'll come off as like not genuine sometimes.
That's a good
So
point.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and
like,
I would say the exact same thing. So I 100% agree with you there. I think rephrasing or like paraphrasing, what their company values are and like mix it into like what you believe and what you think. I think that's a good way to present it. You don't
yeah,
want to like literally use their phrase like echoing it back to them because I think you're right. I think it's going to come across as not genuine or not authentic. And they're like,
yeah,
okay, well, you're just like you read those exact 10 words off our website.
yeah,
Provided they've read their website and know it. But I think like I've been at companies in the past, like SendGrid, for example, and we were very open about publishing our company values of like honest, humble, hungry, and happy.
yeah.
And we'd be like, tell us about yourself. And you're like, oh, I have a very humble nature, and people tell me that I'm honest. It's like, oh, you're just quoting back our 4-H culture. All right, next. And so yeah, it does come across like not very genuine, but I think it's still good to work into your answers. But yeah, don't
Definitely.
use their exact wording.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You can be like a time I displayed, especially if you want to like use the star method and give examples of
Mhm.
things you've done. So like you like a time I was displaying leadership qualities is doing this, da da da. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
So for folks on the stream that haven't heard of it before, what is the STAR method? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I don't even remember what each acronym is for. So I think it's situation, task. I don't remember all of it, but basically, okay,
action and result.
action. Yeah. So
Yep.
basically, the whole idea is like talking about like the situation or context you were in so people can get a better idea of like what you were facing, and then talk about like what you did to like how you responded to that. And like I think what was the last letter? Was it
Result. Like what was the outcome?
yeah,
Yeah.
and what was the outcome of that? And then like sometimes adding in what you learned. And like the whole point of like doing that is so that you can give the interviewer as much context onto like what the situation was and how you reacted, rather than just being like, yeah, I did start a group of like a like let's say you like started an ERG. You don't want to just say like, oh, I did start like an employee resource group before at my job. And they're like, okay, so what? Like
Mhm.
like talk about like, okay, once we face this problem and here's how I reacted to it and here's what happened. And if it even if it didn't go well, you can be like, I learned from that though,
Right.
and next time I'll do it this way.
Yeah. Great. RC Maniac says in chat, the only company I know who gave me their company values is Amazon, and they explicitly said I would be asked about them. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
Amazon's happy about those.
yeah, it's like, is it 12 or 14 like leadership principles, and like I had to go through and try to memorize all of that stuff when I interviewed with them back in December. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do like 5 hours of behavioral questions around these things. And we're not going to say, okay, well, this one's about this principle and this question's about that principle. You had to try to understand or guess which of the principles this question was about. They also didn't want you to repeat an example more than twice the whole day.
What?
And it also had to be like recent experience. So like I couldn't even draw, and I'm like, well, I was just doing like 4 years of teaching, so most of these questions are going to apply to a job I had like a decade ago.
Yeah.
And so I think that was partly why I didn't get the job at Amazon, because my examples weren't recent enough. And there were a few cases where I was like, I didn't repeat the entire scenario, but I was like trying to take like chunks of a job and like apply it to different questions and say, well, I kind of like talked about part of this in another answer earlier today, but like here's kind of the follow-up portion of like what happened, blah blah blah. And I
That's
think,
not fair at all.
I mean,
Like,
that's how they kind of weed things out. Yeah. Sam KitKat says that sounds terrifying.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is for me.
it was pretty heavy, not gonna lie. It was 5 grueling hours. I mean, it was fun. They make it engaging and they make it feel very conversational. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like in the back of your mind is kind of this haunting, like, oh, I can't repeat myself, you know. It's like, shoot, did I already tell that story? I'm like literally writing down in a notebook, like scratching off. It's like, I told that story, I told that story. And so they're like,
Oh
you know, how would you answer this question? I'm like looking down the list going, what story haven't I told yet? It was brutal.
my gosh. That's really
I
tough because
I didn't
sometimes
enjoy
in
it.
training, I only think of like 4 different things that I've done. Like I've
Right.
probably done more, but sometimes I'm like, these are the 4 that I could think of, and this is what I'm gonna bring up for any situation.
Yeah, yeah. RC Maniac says yours was fun. You got lucky. Yeah. Do not recommend. I mean, I was going for a teaching position at Amazon, so it was a role to teach the AWS certification program,
Ooh, that's so
and I mean, it would have been fun. It would have been like all this like really amazing teaching and whatever. And so yeah, it was a lot of like a lot of questions. Like they wanted to hear a little bit about your engineering background and so on, but also like how have you taught a class? How do you keep a class engaged? How do you take questions? How do you like deal with different skill gaps within the class and things like that? Like they were interesting questions.
yeah, that
And
is those are
so for me, it was fun. I mean, I built a whole website about interviewing. So I mean,
It's
I
like I
love
could talk
interviewing.
all day.
Yeah. So for me, it was fun. You know, for RC Maniac, not so much. So, and Zooey says in chat, it's terrible how much time you have to put into the interview process, especially for these big companies. Yeah, especially for the big FAANG companies. Like their interview process is no joke. Like all the study that you have to put into it. I think I put probably 50 to 60 hours of prep into my Amazon interview,
Wow.
not including like the 10 hours or whatever of actual interviews I did.
GitHub is the first quote unquote big, or is the biggest company I've worked for. So I
Yeah,
don't even know.
yeah. It was not a good time. And in retrospect, I'm kind of glad I didn't get the job. I'm
Yeah.
I'm like
Having fun at Postman.
I'm incredibly happy at my job. Like
Yeah.
I would run out of adjectives to try to describe how much I love my job right now. Great. Um, we have a dad joke channel in our Slack,
Ooh.
and so I actually dropped a dad joke in there because I love a good dad joke. And it says, "I lost my thesaurus the other day, and I can't tell you how angry I am."
I love it. Oh
And
my
I got a
God.
little dad joke, so we'll drop a dad joke in there. Where do sheep go to get their haircut? To the Baba shop.
I'm dead.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
good times, good times. All right, we got one more to get to here in Discord. But yeah, keep dropping questions and stuff in chat. We're absolutely happy to kind of kick back and help folks out. Is working at Postman out of this world? Ha ha. Yes, it is. It's actually quite fun. We've been debating, like, is there a way that we could literally get like the Postman logo into space somehow? And
Oh.
I've got all these ideas of, like, you can go buy like those weather balloons and inflate them a little bit, and it'll like take a Raspberry Pi up in orbit and like take pictures at a regular basis. If you've ever seen those YouTube videos, they're actually really entertaining to watch. And my kids and I were part of like a local kids coding group called Coder Dojo, and we actually talked, like several parents talked about, like, you know, all the expense and everything, because it's like a couple $100 to buy all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then, like, you need tracking equipment, because when that balloon pops and it comes back down, you know, you have to hope that a parachute works. But then also, like, to track where the thing actually lands. So you need like a cell phone in there that can like transmit, you know, latitude and
Oh,
longitude kind of thing, or like some way of broadcasting something. And
this
it's a
sounds
really
interesting.
it's a really interesting sort of project to put together, but it costs I guess a fair bit for the actual weather balloon, and they're
Yeah.
really fragile. You have to like use like cotton gloves to like manipulate the balloon, because it's like really thin, and you only put a little bit of helium into it, because as it goes up it like expands and then it pops and whatever. Yeah.
Oh,
um
wow.
but I would love to like get a little Postman logo next to the camera and just have it go up into space and like take a picture. That'd be pretty great.
That'd be so cute.
I'd have to figure out some way of like tying it into like broadcast it over some APIs or something to justify the cost.
Yeah.
I bet I could get work
So that your
to expense
company
it.
can expense it.
Right. We'll have to do something with GitHub. We'll get like the OctoCat and Postman together up in space or something.
Yes.
That'd
You can
be fun.
combine their money and be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"I'm
for sure.
helping."
We'll split the cost at least. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do. MKCat says, when applying to jobs, should you reach out to a recruiter or someone who works at the company that you're applying for each time? Good question. What do you think?
I've done that. I don't think it hurts. You don't have to say each. I mean, I think sometimes if you have like a person that works there to give you information and then to also like help you get your foot in the door a little bit, it's part of networking. um I think it's helpful, but I think it matters on like how you present yourself. Like you can't just like, I've had people just say, "Hi, can I work at GitHub?" I'm like, I don't know. Can you like?
Mhm.
So I
Right.
think it's much better to like say, "Hey, I want to have a coffee chat with you. I'm curious about like the experience at GitHub. Like, what is it like for you? Like, try to get to know them, I guess, and then eventually say like, "Hey, I'm thinking about applying for this role," or you
Right.
can be more direct and say, "Hey, I'm thinking of applying for this role, and here's my resume." But it depends on your approach. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. I think bringing specific questions, I think, to the conversation, I think is wise too. Instead of just saying like, "Oh, can we do a virtual coffee and you can tell me what it's like to work there?" It's like,
Yeah.
how about you give me like 2 or 3 very specific questions that I can answer in 15 minutes? Because I don't want to just sit on the call for like an hour asking whatever random, you know, kind of question you come up with. Like, let me know the question ahead of time. I think
Yeah.
is a better approach, especially if you're kind of cold networking with
Yeah.
people. I think that they're more likely to respond if you say, "Hey, I've got like 3 specific questions. I'd love to hop on a call." Or if you want to answer asynchronously, I think giving people the choice is a nice move
Async
too.
is great.
Yeah, and just, you know, if they haven't got time to be on Zoom, but they got a minute to like, you know, email you some quick answers or something, I think that a lot of people would appreciate not having to be on a phone call. I think you'll get a much better response rate for that
Yeah.
sort of thing. If you know somebody that knows somebody, then it's now kind of like a warm outreach as opposed to cold outreach. And get somebody to introduce you and say, hey, Rizèl, Ian, I know Ian, and Ian wants to talk about GitHub. Do you have a minute to chat with them? Or these are the questions that they've asked me to forward if you got a minute or whatever. You're way more likely to get a response.
Yeah.
But yeah, networking is really, really key. I think, especially for that first role in tech, I think networking is probably going to find you the job faster than just blind applying and just,
Dropping, yeah.
getting resumes out there.
Yeah. 100% agree with that. And that's a great point about like um being flexible with async or having those questions ahead of time, because you do have to keep in mind that people are busy or in meetings all day. So they probably have an even better, like more time to give you like what's the word, like a more expansive or better answer if you give them that time to do that or help them prep in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, sure. But Sam KitKat, to go back to your question, if you don't know anybody at the company, you can absolutely reach out to recruiters. They would love to hear from you. Now, they are also busy, so they may not get back to you right away, but reaching out to a recruiter is definitely a good way to proceed on that. I would say also, like, one of my little, like, kind of life hacks, in order to get a better response rate from people, you have to kind of show them that you've got some common ground. And so I tell people, go look up the company on LinkedIn, go find people in like your geographic area, and then go find meetups in your area and see if those people are part of those meetups, and then reach out to them through meetup.com as opposed to like LinkedIn. And just say like, hey, I see you're also part of this React user group, which I just happened to join 30 seconds ago. And I noticed that you also work at such and such a company. Do you have a minute to chat? I've got like these questions. Now that you're already establishing that you've got common ground on something, and I think that again, you're more likely to get a response of like, oh yeah, I haven't been to that meetup in a while. I wonder if they're doing things lately. And now they see that you're a member of that group too. I think you're just more likely to get responses that way as opposed to just like cold emailing people. But when you do reach out to people, like, make sure that you send them those questions ahead of time. But yeah, recruiters, I mean, that's their job. They're trying to find people to fill these roles. And so if you reach out to the recruiter, you're kind of saving them time. And I think they're going to be more than happy to talk to you. And ask them what is the process? Like, what is the process to apply? What is the interview process going to be like? I think that those are all really good things to kind of pose to the recruiter and get in.
Agreed.
RC Maniac says, I have a slightly weird perspective. Basically what Ian said, since it's cold networking, but reach out to the person who works there, because if the place sounds good and the worker genuinely thinks you'd be good, they can get a referral bonus for it. Yep.
That's true.
So there's a slight incentive for them to go, oh yeah, sure, I'll tell you all about it. I've seen last week, excuse me, I saw on Twitter some company was offering like ridiculous money. It was something like $15,000 or something as a referral bonus. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
It was like a ridiculous amount of money to refer someone to the company. It's like I would be recruiting like absolutely everybody I knew.
Me too. You would think I was in HR.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, come on.
But yeah, no, RC Maniac brings up a good point. Like there can be a financial incentive for them to like, let me get to know Rizèl a little bit. Let me hear your background. Like, yeah, I think you'd be a fit. Let me get your resume in for you. What I would say on that, and this is some advice that I've been kind of giving out since I was a teacher, is if you get a referral or if somebody wants to refer you for that job, find out what the application process is first. Because if you give them your resume and say, hey, can you submit this to HR for me? And they take it to HR, and HR says, well, but they have to apply online because it's got to go into our applicant tracking system, whatever. Then when you go actually apply, then you've got to follow up with them and ask them a second favor to say, hey, can you go ask HR about my application? Did they get it? Where does it stand? Kind of thing. But if you apply first and then reach out to your contact and say, I've applied for the job, can you go talk to HR? That's only one favor that you're asking instead of two. So that can sometimes feel like a lighter lift. Now, if you know the person really well, then you kind of have unlimited favors. Um, hopefully, hopefully you know them well enough to have multiple favors. But yeah, I mean, having a referral, having someone inside the company take your resume to HR and go, let me tell you all about Rizèl. We've been chatting, we've been staying in touch. I've been mentoring them on some projects, whatever the case may be. Like, if you've been building up that rapport over weeks or months, and then you say like, hey, I think I'd like a job there. Can I give you my resume to submit? And they get that in there for you. Like, recruiters are going to call you like immediately and say, hey, we got this referral from so-and-so at the company. Like, we'd like to schedule interviews. They're way more likely to take internal referrals. It saves them a bunch of time. If they can get a referral and they hire you based on that, it saves them so much time having to like randomly reach out to people and try to find somebody interested to come interview.
Yeah, totally agree. I love that.
Zooey said in chat, one of the first companies I applied for had a $10,000 referral bonus, and they only had to be there for a month. Wow.
I'm so jealous. GitHub doesn't have referral bonus. Oh man.
You think GitHub would have a little more money to spread around now that they're owned by Microsoft? But
yeah, no, I mean they do, I'm assuming. But
yeah.
their idea is that they don't want to end up hiring like the same type of people.
Sure.
So I guess they don't want referral bonuses, but I'm like, I know different types of people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, that's definitely a good consideration though. Like, from a culture point of view, you want to make sure that you've got a good culture mix.
Yeah.
RC Maniac says in chat, if I refer someone at my company, it literally is just sending it to a mailing list of our recruiters, but they mark it as a referral under your and a lot of applicant tracking systems that I used as a hiring manager, they had a place in there of like, how did you find this candidate? And there was pretty much always an option in there for like internal referral, and then you put the person, whether or not there was a bonus. But that way other people looking at the applicant system could look at, oh, Ian applied for a job and they came in because of Rizèl. It's like, okay, well, if we've got someone internally that knows this person, yeah, let's get them on the phone, let's chat with them.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes a big difference for sure.
These questions are so fun.
Yeah, they are. Yep. The folks that come and hang out and chat are amazing. Really appreciate all the support over time for everybody. Last one that I had tagged for us to kind of chat about tonight. I applied for a company for a mid-level role. I found out later that some other colleagues of mine, they all, in the context of this, they all graduated like right around the same time. My colleagues with the same level of experience got into senior level roles at the same company. So I only have 1 or 2 interviews left. Can I negotiate for a more senior position? And if so, how? So just to kind of rephrase, they applied for like an intermediate level because they thought that's what they were qualified for, and then found out some of their colleagues worked there as senior level. So they want to know, hey, like, I'm still in the interview process. Can I negotiate for a senior role? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert, but since you haven't signed any papers yet, I think everything is up for negotiation. I feel like until you've like signed the actual offer letter, then that's when you have to stop negotiating. I would probably say like, hey, now that I've been through part of the interview process and I'm getting a better understanding of the role, I noticed that you have like senior level positions open, and I'm curious if I would be like um eligible I don't know how to word this, but basically I would bring up that like, yeah, I'm actually interested in like being considered for the senior level role position now that I've talked to people and got a better understanding of the job duties there. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I would bring up like, oh, my friends are senior, so
No,
yeah.
I think it's a perfect leverage point, and just say like, you know what, some of my other colleagues from my school with the same amount of experience that I have gotten into senior level roles. Like, is there anything about my background that would qualify me for a similar role?
Yeah.
And they'll go take a look at it and go, oh yeah, Ian and Rizèl graduated like within 6 months of each other, and Rizal's a senior here, so yeah, maybe we should
Yeah,
consider
no,
Ian for
yeah.
that senior role too. I mean, it can't hurt to ask. The worst they'll say is no.
Yeah.
The I did have this kind of backfire on me in my interview process, and I've talked about it a little bit on the stream before, so bear with me because I'm going to repeat it again. But I applied for a role, and it was actually a developer relations role, and they moved me into more of an education type of role where I'd be writing more curriculum than like doing typical DevRel work. And that role that they moved me into was not a senior level title. I'm like, I don't care. It's a cool company. Like, I want to go work there. And then so they sent me their job offer like on a Thursday or a Friday. And then over the weekend, I was like trying to research a little bit more about the company and what the role entailed and kind of matching that against their offer letter. And I realized that when I searched on the site, they had opened a senior level role for that curriculum team.
Yeah.
And so I contacted the hiring manager back and I'm like, hey, I noticed over the weekend, like, I started the letter with, hey, I appreciate the offer. I'm still going through, I'm reviewing everything. But while I was reviewing it, I noticed that the company posted a senior level role. Do I qualify for that? Like, does my background, my experience or whatever, like, could I qualify for that senior role? And is there more salary involved? Because I was really honest with them. I'm like, I appreciate the offer that you made, but the salary is quite a lot lower than other offers that I had in hand at the time. And I said, if you can't move on the salary, like, would I qualify for that senior role? And then does it also have a higher salary? Well, they wrote back and they said, you do qualify for that senior role. We can give you that title, but we can't give you a pay bump.
Oh.
But their other option was, we can hire you at the not senior level, and then in a year when you hit your anniversary, we'll promote you to senior and you'll get that bump. Okay. Plus you'll get the anniversary bump because you've been there for a year, and so you get a double bump. But I kind of countered back with, wait, so you recognize that I have senior level ability. You've told me that I qualify for that senior level role, but you will not give me the salary that you just told me is available for that senior role. You're going to make me wait for a year. Meanwhile, over the course of that year, I have to put in senior level skill because you recognize that that's what I'm bringing to the team. So you want me to be a senior dev, but you'll either give me the title with no pay or expect me to do the work with no title or pay and wait a year to get that extra pay anyway. I'm like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Know your worth.
So know what you're worth and hold to it. But yeah, you can ask the company. You can absolutely ask the company if you qualify for that extra. Like I said, the worst they'll say is no. And there were other scenarios where I interviewed where I went, I applied at a more senior level and they bumped me down a little bit. And we would have that discussion over, okay, well, why did you bring me in at that level? Or, like Postman, for example, I applied for like principal developer advocate and they bumped me down to senior, which is fine. And when I was at Amazon, they bumped me from an L6 down to an L5, which is like principal level down to senior level. Yeah. And everybody I talked with is like, no, don't let them do that because it takes like years to get that level promotion back at Amazon. And I went back and forth with the recruiter like many times. They're like, no, we're not going to put you back at L6. Like, you come in at L5. I'm like, well, they were bringing me in. They said, if we make an offer, we'll bring you in at the top of the salary band for L5. But then when they promote you to L6, so the salary bands overlap. And they said, when we promote you to L6, you actually get a pay decrease to the bottom of that next level. So I would have actually taken a pay cut to get the promotion to L6 later.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, that's like yet another reason why I don't ever want to work at Amazon.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I know some like really awesome teams at Amazon, like with Ali Patel and all those people. But yeah, the structure seems interesting or something that I'm not interested in.
Yeah. RC Maniac says in chat, I actually need to follow up with a friend and a recruiter at my company. I referred them, and within 5 minutes of sending the email, the recruiters responded to me. They responded to my friend, and the process started right away. Unfortunately, the one role the recruiter pinned them for got filled. The recruiter said, hey, if I can find another role, I will. My friend sent a bigger resume to provide more options, and the recruiter said, much better. Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
That's great. Get
Yep,
that
for
10.
sure.
Is this the place where they pay you 10,000? If
No,
so, get. Oh,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
oh.
But yeah, if you're getting that kind of referral bonus, you know, free to donate to my channel. Kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I don't do this to make money. I do this all for free. And Zooey says, yeah, we want your senior level skills for lower level. Yeah, know what you're worth. No matter who you are, no matter what your skill level is, no matter like what you look like, know what you're worth and fight for that. You have to advocate for yourself because no one else is going to advocate for you. You are in charge of that. But yeah, definitely got to fight for that. And you absolutely should negotiate. When you do get an offer, you should absolutely negotiate. Always negotiate your base pay because everything else you do there is going to be based on that, like bonuses, raises, all of that is usually like a percentage of whatever that salary is. So always negotiate that up first. And if they can't move on salary, then ask for other things like equity and perks and things like that. Not everything's negotiable though. I had a chat with some folks on Monday about like what is negotiable or not negotiable on things. Like if they do like a 401k match, you're not going to be able to negotiate a higher match because that's going to be set at a company level. The amount of time off you get is probably not going to be negotiable. You can always negotiate within your team around like, hey, I'm going to work like, you know, 9.5 hours a day instead of 9 hours a day so I can take every other Friday afternoon off, something like that. Like most teams are going to be fine with like working on that. Or I think enough companies now are on enough flex time kind of thing that they don't care.
I have a question. Have you ever like negotiated if you got a promotion? Like if they gave you a promotion and they're like, "This is your raise." Have you ever been like, "Could I get more than that?" Like, is that a possibility?
It
or
is.
Is that wild?
I've been a hiring. I've been on the business side where I was offering somebody a promotion and they asked for more money. And when you go into those kinds of talks, you have to explain why. You're like, you can't just say like, no, I want more. Like, oh, 5% raise, great. Inflation is 7%. Why didn't I get a 7% raise at a minimum? You know, you're giving me a pay cut. Well, as a manager, I should already know that. I should be giving you like, you know, a couple of percent plus inflation or whatever. Like, I think, yeah, you can absolutely negotiate for more money. You just have to explain why you're worth it. And it's the same with negotiating on any offer that you get. Excuse me. You need to explain why. Yeah. If you've got a good story for why your background, why your experience and your skills, all of that you're bringing to the company is going to make that company better, that's why you're worth more money. Yeah. In this particular case on Monday night that I was talking to this guy, he had like a decade or so of like QA experience. Wow. And he went to a boot camp to learn software development. Now he wants to be a software developer. And he's like, you know, they want to offer me like junior level software developer pay in his area. And I'm like, you should ask for like 10 or 15K more than that because you're bringing a decade of QA experience. Yeah. I said, you need to go back and position that and say, hey, I've got all this extra experience doing QA. I know how like making a change over here is going to have a ripple effect and break something over here. Like I've seen all of that happen. I've seen it played out. I've written automation tests. I've written blah, blah, blah. Like explain why you're worth that 15K more and they'll give you that 15K.
Definitely.
But if you just be like, oh, I guess I only get, you know, 80K or whatever. It's like, no, don't put up with that. Like know what you're worth. Know what your skills and your background are worth. And if you ever want to discuss it privately, reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. I use the same handles on all these platforms. Reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you word things and phrase things to get that bag, as they say, because you gotta get what you're worth. You gotta get what you're worth. It's not worth being at a job that you love and being miserable about payday because you wish that you had negotiated.
Yeah, especially when you find out coworkers are making more, you're like, what?
Mm-hmm. I had someone else, I forgot to put this in Discord, but I had someone else reach out recently too, and they're like, I think it's time for me to leave my company. I've been here for like 2 or 3 years, and I just found out that people that they're hiring now that are brand new are making more money than I'm making. Wow. And I'm like, okay, well, step one is go talk to your manager and find out why that is. And say like, I've been here for 2 years. This person you just hired who has less skill than me is making more money than me, like I should be making more than them. Like, what's it going to take to correct that? And if they
Yeah.
won't, then they shouldn't be surprised when you hand in a resignation letter.
Yeah, I agree. Like, talk to them first before you just leave.
Yeah.
Because you never know, they might bump you up.
Yeah, I mean, companies want to retain that knowledge and retain that talent. You know, it sucks for them if you turn around and leave. I think I heard a stat. On average, it's somewhere between like $30,000 and $50,000 to hire an employee. By the time you take everybody's time from the recruiter and how much time it takes to source people and the phone calls and the emails and just the time of dragging out the interviews and interviewing a whole bunch of people and then making, you know, the time that it takes. Like, it can take 2 to 3 months to hire somebody. And you've got recruiters working that whole time. Your engineers are being pulled off of projects to go do interviews. As a manager, you're losing time to also do interviews and coordinate all this stuff. It's expensive to hire somebody. They would rather retain you. It would be cheaper for them to give you that raise than for them to lose you and have to hire somebody and start all over again.
Yeah.
But a lot of companies don't really recognize that. One place that I worked at was really cool about this. They're like, well, we know that you're going to leave a job to go make 10%. So we're going to give you that 10% raise, and we're also going to give it to you over the course of the year. So like at the end of, let's say like every quarter, we're going to give everybody like a 2.5% bump, you know, and then the next quarter you get another 2.5% bump. So you don't have to wait for that year to happen to get that 10% bump. We're going to give it to you gradually. And so your paycheck's just constantly going up. Like, that made such a huge difference. Is like, that is amazing. I wish every company would do that.
That's a company that cares. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, they took really good care of their people. Cool. Any other questions in chat? I think I saw something else come through from RC Maniac. Oh no, that was needing to follow up with your friend. I wish they paid $10K for a referral. I think it's $1,500 for non-senior, $3,000 for senior. I mean, that's still pretty good. Just keep in mind that's taxed, and it'll get taxed as bonus money, so you'll probably lose half of it.
Yeah,
but,
it's still good.
Yeah, pretty nice for sure. I mean, any free cash is good cash, right?
Yeah, even if it's $5, that's more. That's $5 more than you had.
I mean, I hope it's more than like a Starbucks card, but like.
Oh my god, yeah, because you help them to recruit, but still, free cash is good. What's your? By the way, I just remembered that we were going to talk about mentorship. I don't know how much time.
Oh yeah. No, I'm good on time. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. So I had a call earlier today with someone that was asking like, hey, how do I get into mentorship? Like, I want to, like, you know, think a little bit more about like helping educate other people around me. Like, and they were basically quizzing me a little bit on like, how did I get into mentorship and teaching, education, things like that. Do you actively mentor anybody right now? What does that look like? What does that look like?
I guess I forgot to mention that I run a program called GCode. And I think I told you this when I like met you, but like I run a program called GCode, and we like introduce women of color, non-binary people of color to like web dev fundamentals. So we're on our 4th cohort, and so yeah, I mentor some people. Yeah, we're on our 4th cohort, and each cohort has like about 15 people. And like, to answer the question on like how to get into mentoring, I don't know how I really got into it. I guess I've seen there's multiple methods, right? Like, I've seen people tweet out like, hey, I'm looking to mentor people. That is one option, because I have received mentors through that method. Also, like, joining different groups, like I think I was in Girls in Tech once, and I received mentors through that too, like where they have like formal matching mentorship programs, or like how you have like your interview guide, or like how I have G-Code, like just saying like, hey, I'm willing to like take a few people under my wing. But also, I think like one thing that's important about mentorship is like not going in with like an ego, or knowing like this is not about you, this is about them and figuring out what they want. Because I've had mentors in the past that like they just talk about themselves all the time, and while I am interested in hearing about their journey, I also want them to take time to listen to me and what my wants and needs are. So I think like keeping that in mind as you like help them along the way.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for me, like I've always done some level of like mentoring or tutoring or something, like all the way back to like childhood. Uh, so like in college, I was a paid tutor, and then as you kind of gain rank in as a software developer, you're kind of expected to mentor other people around you and get them to where you are, and you do that a lot by mentorship and just sitting with people and explaining, oh, this is how to like change up this code and doing code reviews and things like that. That'll also level up people around you. But that's kind of an expectation that they put on senior level devs.
Yeah.
And then for me, that kind of turned into like a coworker named Jeffrey that no, I didn't have on the stream. Did a did like a I had Jeffrey come and talk to my class at school one time, and he and I worked at SendGrid, and he's like, hey, there's this code school down the road that could use mentors, if you're interested. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go check it out. And then that's how I got involved with Turing, just as a mentor. And I did that for 3 years, and I helped like a ton of their students. And so the guy that runs the school called me up, and he's like, you want a job over here? Like, you're doing a great job. Like, you want to just do it over here? I'm like, okay. And so that transitioned me into like full-time education. And then I left that job, and I'm like, I still want to teach. Like, I still want to like share my ideas and perspectives. And that launched the whole stream. I'd already had the website up at that point. I'd had the website up for like a year or two, and I'm like, oh, I still want to like try to educate people. So yeah, I got into streaming from there. But yeah, it's very fulfilling to do mentorship. So I actually mentor with a group called Mentors in Tech. It's called Mint, and they're actually on LinkedIn. I'll see if I can get the link on LinkedIn. They've got a whole big group, and so if you're looking for mentorship or if you want to be a mentor, check out Mentors in Tech. They're always looking for new mentors, and they work with a lot of universities and colleges and try to find underrepresented folks in the industry and try to find mentorship for them, especially for that first job.
Yeah. I'll plug a couple places too if you ever want to mentor at Hack Diversity, which is a program I went through and mentioned earlier. If you ever want to mentor at Resilient Coders as well, because that program is also like a nonprofit. Ooh, my camera, I messed it up. But that program's a
We can still hear you.
nonprofit. Oh, okay, awesome. I might have to. I hate when this happens, but it's a nonprofit program that
Okay.
like teaches people of color how to code, and then I lost my train of thought now that my camera got disabled.
All good.
But yeah,
There we go.
there's a ton of programs. Yay, I'm back. This
Yeah.
camera is so annoying. If I move, like it'll get disconnected.
Yeah. No, we can definitely chat some more about that. Lego Logic 16 asked a good question. Do HR teams ask why you left your previous company on employment verification checks? They'll sometimes ask as part of the application, but it's not as common in the tech industry. They'll usually ask on the first call that they do with you. They'll ask like, why are you thinking about leaving? So if you're currently employed, they'll ask why you're thinking of leaving. If you have already left that job, they may ask like, why did you leave it? And it's a pretty common behavioral question to ask. And they basically want to hear you talk about like, what did you learn there? What was your experience? I would say be cautious about how negatively you may speak about the company. I would say like you definitely want to stay on positive tones. And I heard there's a podcast that I follow on Spotify. I'll try to find the link and drop it in the description later, where this guy described how to answer that question as if you were on a date with somebody. So like, if I was, dating my wife again, very first date, you kind of sit down. It's like, tell me about your previous ex. It's like, I'm going to like dodge that question as much as possible and talk about like why I want this relationship with this person now. And it kind of, you can kind of do the same thing with a company of like, why did you leave that last job? It's like, I wanted to move on. I wanted to go in a different direction. And this is what I like about your company and why you're headed in that direction, and start immediately talking about the future sort of momentum that you want to take in your career with them, and kind of dodge the question a little bit about what you didn't like about that other company. And that one really stuck with me. I'm like, that's actually a really good idea to kind of put it in that context of, you don't like, if you don't want to talk negatively about it, what's that saying? If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything,
Don't
right?
say it at all. Yeah.
And so you can kind of take that same approach, or even if it was a good experience, you still want to pivot quickly onto, and that's why I'm applying for this job here at this company, because you're headed in a direction of where I want to take my career. Or you
Yeah.
could say, like, you know what, that was my first job, and you kind of mentioned too, earlier in the stream, like that first job may not be your dream job,
Yeah.
right? It's a job. Just go get a job, and then, you know, get that year of experience, and then a lot more companies are going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And you can say like, yeah, I'm changing my job because, you know, I decided after doing that particular role that I wanted to kind of switch gears and focus on this kind of thing that your company's doing. And so I'm
Yeah.
really excited to continue to learn and grow in that area, and that's why I've applied for the job. And just pivot that question into talking about why you've applied there. So they may ask on that first call, they may not. I mean, they'll probably ask like, why are you interested in our company? And you should have something prepared. But again, as we said earlier in the stream, don't use their words against them of like, oh, they had this really catchy phrase on their site, so I'm gonna like try to put that in my answer, and like that'll make me look really good, right? It's like, no, it'll come across a little inauthentic. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, just, you know, be yourself, but try to pivot that conversation about like why you've applied at that job, and why that's gonna like propel you forward.
Yeah, I really love that idea because you want to spend as much time selling yourself and why you should be working there and not like thinking about the past. But I will say for employment verification checks, the first one I ever got was from GitHub. I think because
Hmm.
now that Microsoft's their parent company, it's much more like structured. But I tried to keep it like brief on the like
Right.
why like they had like a little paper that I had to like fill out. So I was just like internship ended, looking for new opportunity. Like I tried to not like go too deep into the reasons why I left.
Yeah. Lego Logic followed up in chat, and this might be a bit of a hot topic, but let's dive in on this. Is it okay to tell them that you're leaving that job because they're requiring people to go back to the office, and I prefer remote?
Ooh. I think I guess kind of like what you said, right? If the company you're applying to does have remote work, you can say you can pivot it to like, oh, I'm actually applying here because like I found that I have a better work life balance being remote or something like that. But like again, like how Ian said, like pivot it back to the company, like the company you're applying to, and less on like the past job.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, and RC Maniac says is a perfectly valid reason to like tell them why you're leaving the job too. I would phrase it maybe a little bit differently. I could say something like, you know, I'm thinking about leaving because I'm looking for a permanent remote job. This company wants us to go back on site, but, you know, like Rizèl was saying, like I'm more productive at home. I have a better work-life balance. You know, I don't have to lose 2+ hours of my
Commute time.
day commuting and parking,
Yeah.
or, you know, waiting for buses or whatever. Like it's just so much better for me and my lifestyle to find a 100% remote job. The other way to do that is apply for a job across the country. And if they say, can you relocate? Just say no. You know, I'm looking for a remote job. And now they can say, well, why are you leaving your other job? And it's like, because I'm looking for a remote job.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's a perfectly valid reason. And especially in tech, in today's sort of realm right now, I think a lot more companies are a lot more open-minded about that. There are companies that are going to prefer that you can come into the office if they have an office in your area. Like Postman, for example, they're like, yeah, we're 100% remote. If you want to come to an office, that's fine. They've got like sort of hub like HQ in a couple of areas around the world. And they're like, once we build up like a number of employees in any metro area, we'll consider like getting a co-working space. If everybody there like wants it, we'll get a co-working space. But if you just want to stay at home, you can stay at home. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more companies are going to be open-minded about that, especially when they start losing talent. Like Lego Logic is like, I'm out of here. You want to force me back to the office, I'm out. I think a lot more companies are going to kind of wake up and go, oh, okay, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And but Lego Logic, I would probably talk to your boss first and just say like, hey, you know what? I'm more productive at home. I'm more relaxed. I'm more satisfied. I've got like better job satisfaction working remotely. what can we do to work this out? Like, I want to stay 100% remote. And if they refuse, then say, okay, I may start looking for other opportunities because I want to stay remote.
Yeah.
And then it's not a surprise because you brought it up and they said no. And so when you hand in that resignation, it's not a surprise. The worst thing for me as a manager was getting a resignation I wasn't expecting. And you know, they just walk in and be like, I quit and these are the reasons why. It's like, I could have fixed like half of the stuff on this list. Like, would that have kept you? And by then it's too late. They've already like interviewed and they've accepted another job offer. Like, it would be kind of silly and honestly a little pointless for me to try to retain you at that point, because you've already thought about leaving. You've thought enough negative things about me and my company that you're leaving anyway. Trying to keep you in a situation that you don't like is not fruitful either. So, but I would rather have that conversation as your manager. I would rather have a talk about like what you're not happy about and see if it's something that we can fix. A lot of times it is something that they can control and something that they can fix. You have to ask.
Yeah, it's true. Crazy. So our maniac said the crazy one I've heard was Googled. Oh.
It went work from home. Oh yeah, and then they're like, yeah. Well, they flip flop quite a bit. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna be remote for a long time. They're like, just kidding. We're gonna come back to the office, and then like the last surge kind of hit, and they're like, wait, stay remote, don't come back. And now they're like, we would like everybody to come back in April for like 3 days a week. And what they want to do is they want to make sure that when you're on campus, that's when people are having like team meetings, so that when you know, you don't have to worry about attending meetings when you're remote. When you're remote, you can just go heads down, get your work done, kind of thing. But when you're on campus, that's when the teams are actually going to like get together and do things.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Lego Logic added more follow-up. Said, I tried that. It's government mandated, so my boss can't do anything.
Hey, look for those remote first roles. But I feel like government mandate, I don't know.
GitHub's hiring.
Yeah, come through to GitHub. I will send a referral.
I won't get a bonus.
Yeah, I won't get a bonus, but I'm happy to refer you.
I don't get a bonus at Postman, but you want to apply for a job there, I'll give you a referral too. Yeah, just reach out. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'll give you a referral. Most likely my best bet is to join a startup that doesn't own an office. I mean, there are like small, mid-size, even large-size companies that are staying remote, and they are okay with hiring people that are remote. So ask around. I think companies that are going to start forcing people to come back, I think are going to start losing their employees. And as much as they want to kind of retain that talent, they're going to do so at the expense of like forcing people in situations they don't want to be in.
Yeah, gotta do your research when looking at jobs. You don't just assume if a company is remote or not.
Yeah.
Someone said VMware is remote and GoDaddy.
Yeah, there are a lot of like 100% remote at companies now. So ask. I mean, when you get on the call with a recruiter, just say, I'm looking for a 100% remote job. I want to stay where I am. You know, even if you've got an office in my area, I want to stay working from home. Is that a possibility? And if they say, well, we're looking to have everybody come back to the office, just say, all right, thanks anyway. But if I can't be 100% work from home, I'm not in. Yeah. And as hard as it may be to have that conversation when you're like, I really would have liked to have worked for that company. I mean, it's quality of life. It's not just about the job. It's your quality of life. Do you want to commute? Do you want to have to do all that? Like, I'm perfectly fine in Colorado right now, not like shoveling snow off my car every time it snows. Like, you know, as cold as my basement is to work down here, it's nice that my commute is 2 flights of stairs. So
yeah, I'm loving remote. It changed my life.
Yeah. RC Maniac says, my company's also hiring and it's leaving it up to the team. So some are full remote, some are hybrid, some are requesting in office.
Interesting.
My team is fully remote, but myself and at least 2 others are going to do hybrid. Yeah. I mean, honestly, when I left Turing and went back to Stream, I'm like, oh, cool. I can go to the office if I want to. It was about a half hour away. And I did. I went up like 1 day a week just to have a little bit of FaceTime with some employees and so on. And it was nice having a little bit of FaceTime. And I'm like, you know, like you're still wearing a mask and you're still being really careful. And they had like a sign-in sheet where you had to take your temperature, you know, because of,
Oh,
you know,
that's
regulations and stuff, because they wanted everybody to be safe and feel safe.
yeah,
Which was nice. But they were also like, if you just want to stay home 100%, stay home. Like, it's fine. Like, we want you to be happy. We want you to be safe. And we would rather you like be at home and be safe than have like come to the office and be miserable or get sick. Like, that's not worth it to anybody. So yeah, it kind of comes back to what you said earlier. Like, the company has to care about the people. If the company cares
yeah,
about the people, it makes a huge difference. So
yeah.
go find those companies. They're out there.
They really are. Do your research. Don't jump on a company too quick if it's
Yeah.
not your first job.
Yeah. Yeah. That first job, you might just have to take the job and like, you know, deal with it
Get
for a
that
year.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get that first year of experience, and then literally you can go anywhere else. So it might be a tough go for a year, but it's a temporary inconvenience to like get that experience, and then you're set after that. Cool. Well, I think we'll start to wrap up. We've been at it for an hour and a half. Rizèl, I really appreciate your time and your perspectives. Thanks for sharing your background with us. We'll definitely drop all those links in the YouTube description later on. So I grabbed links for your G code. What was it?
Thank you.
Out here,
G
G
Code
Code
House?
House. Yeah,
Yeah.
gcodehouse.com or the
Hey,
gcodehouse.com. Also the Twitter link for it. And the code school that you went to, drop their link in as well. If you've got other links, feel free to drop those in chat for folks. Or anything else you want to plug? Give you a couple of minutes. How can people find you? What's the best way to reach out if folks want to stay in contact with you?
yeah, I'm pretty active on Twitter, so you can find me on Twitter at Black Girl Bites. What else? LinkedIn. My name is Rizèl Scarlett on there. You can add me on there. Polywork. I'm starting to use that more. I think my name is just Rizèl on it. Like I think you can do polywork.com/Rizèl. Um, what else? I write a lot of blog posts on Hashnode and Dev.to, and my name is Black Girl Bites on there. But like, yeah, I'm pretty chill. Follow me, I'll follow you back.
I'm always jealous of people that get their first name on platforms
Yeah,
like that.
perks of having a unique name.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Awesome. Well, you dropped that link in. So yeah, thanks again for spending some time with us and sharing your thoughts and ideas. It was great having you on. I'd love to stay in touch and collaborate on some stuff. I mean, that's the nice thing about DevRel is there's always an excuse to like do something together. So yeah, we'll figure out how to get AutoCAD and Postman up to space or something at some point. I think that'd be a fun one to kind of nerd out on for a little while.
Yeah, and see you on my Twitter space. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we planned it for next week.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
for next week. Yep.
see you.
Yep. Sure. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll catch you on Sunday. Sunday will be more Q&A. If you have a resume that you want to do a review, I am collecting resumes in order to review. And so if you want to send in a resume, I'm going to batch them all up, and I'm going to do like one big like resume blast, probably once a month going forward. And so if you have a resume that you want to drop in, you can send it over to techinterview.guide/resume review, and I will do them for free on the stream. So send those over, and we'll get you sorted out there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So thanks again for hanging out, everyone. Thanks to everybody in chat for dropping questions in. Damn KitKat, I did get your LinkedIn connection request, so we're connected on there. Feel free to ask questions as we go. Yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone. We'll see you on Sunday, and stay cool if you're in a warm place, and stay warm if you're in a cool place. And we'll catch you next stream. Cheers.
Thank you.